our time in wrong ways, right? Everything we have, including our time, is supposed to be spent in a way that glorifies God. It reaches people, serves people, loves people. And time is unique in the sense that it's very limited. We only have a certain amount of time. None of us know how much time we have, but we know that we only have a little bit of it. And so I made the comment that we spend so much time we waste it. And a lot of us spend and waste a lot of our time on this. Right? That's Hollis McCord in case you're wondering. But I made the comment that we spend so much time, we waste so much time on our phone, and then on Monday, somebody that's in here right now that I won't mention, but Lana showed me something that she found in Reader's Digest that really just blew my mind. Because I told you if you go into your settings, you can look and see and you can find how much time you spent on the phone in the last 10 days or a week. I can't remember which one it is, and it'll blow your mind. But Miss Lana showed me that in the Reader's Digest, it was weird because we just talked about this. It said the average American adult checks their phone 144 times daily. 144 times daily. That adds up to 4 hours a day. So not just sitting on your phone. Now, some of you take it out chunks at a time, but not just 4 hours straight, but throughout the day, the average adult spends 4 hours a day looking at their phone. That ends up being 2 months out of the year. Not of your lifetime, but you have 12 months in a year. Those of you that went to Cherokee County, there's 12 months. Some of you can name all of them, right? 2 of those 12, 1/6 of the year you spend looking at your phone. And we're going to get into some advanced math now. In the last decade, if you've had a phone, on average, you've spent 1.5 years looking at your phone. And then we complain that we don't have enough time to do stuff. We don't have enough time to get more involved in church. We don't have enough time to spend with our family. We don't have enough time to do this. And if you've been to my house, it looks like I don't have time to do anything in the yard. And then we spend 4 hours a day on our phone. It's just insane what we spend our time on. And we are being poor stewards of our time, not giving it to God, but giving it to a screen, right? So we're going to continue on this week. And we're going to continue to look at another area in our life that we're failing to be good stewards of. If you truly want to see what you love in your life, you can look in 3 areas, all right? Now, you can say that you love anything, right? Watch. I love casseroles, right? Doesn't mean anything. I can say it all day, but you can go back and look in my life, and there's 0 evidence that I love casseroles. 0. Absolutely 0 evidence. All right? We should eradicate them. But what you really love is going to be evident in 3 areas. All right? If you really want to know what you love or what somebody else loves, look at their checkbook. What have they spent the most money on? What have they poured their money into? Is it their kids? Is it their home? Is it themselves? What have you spent the most money on? That'll show you what you love the most. Go look at somebody's calendar. What have they spent the most time doing? Is it work? Is it ball games? Is it church? Is it cell phones? What have you done the most with your time? And the third way to look at something and really understand what you really love is, how did I spend my energy? Where did all my effort, all my energy, all my abilities, where did they go to? Right? Most of you know, if you've been in here in the last few months, you know that I coach an 8U baseball team. All right? Now, if you ever coach anything in Park and Rec, there's always a wide range of abilities. All right? In Parks and Rec, everybody that signs up gets to play. All right? And it's awesome. It's a great thing to learn and develop and do. But as you're picking teams, there are kids in 8U baseball that can't hit, they can't catch, they can't throw. They just do good to have a hat and a belt on when they get to the ballpark. Right? And then there's kids that about every time they come up to the plate, they're going to hit it to the fence, no matter if they're playing Rick's team or not, Jace. Right? And so you have this wide range of talent. And I'll say this church, if we were to put together an 8U baseball team, this church would kick every other church's butt in 8U baseball, hands down, promise you. I've seen them, right? Anyways, but there's all across the board so many different talents and abilities and lack thereof. But if you were to go to the ballpark right now and you watched each kid play, I can tell you exactly which kid loves baseball the most and which kid loves baseball, doesn't love it at all. In fact, they're only out there because their mom and dad love baseball. And it has nothing to do with how talented they are. It has nothing to do with who can throw and who can hit. It has nothing to do with who can catch and who knows where to go with the ball or none of that stuff. Right? You can't look at somebody and see their talents and decide how much they love something. However, I can look at each kid and tell you by the effort they put into the game, by the excitement level they have when they're on the field, how much they love it. Right? We have kids in our league, and there's kids on our team that are, I'm just going to be honest, they're not very good at all. But I can tell you that they love the game. We have one kid, and as you're picking teams, all right, you're sitting in a room, and you're going down, and you start with the top players, and you work your way down, and you try to make all the teams even. I mean, we had this one kid on our team that was one of the very last kids that got picked in the whole league. And he comes out, he can't throw, he can't hit, he can't do anything. We figured out quickly that he is right-handed, but he thought he was left-handed. So he had the wrong glove. We gave him the right glove. His dad doesn't speak English, and I tried to tell him, hey, your kid's right-handed. He's like, yes. And I was like, well, he's got a right-handed glove. He's like, yes. I was like, never mind. We're going to give him a glove. Yes. And I was like, okay. But we figured out that he threw right-handed. He got a little bit better, but he's not the greatest athlete on our team. But this week, we were in the middle of the greatest baseball game I've ever watched. Right? Exciting. Coaches screaming at parents taking their shirt off and fighting coaches. Not really. It almost got to that, but we did. Our parents are really good. We kept it cool, right? But we're losing going into the bottom of the last inning. We're losing 18-7. No, we're losing 19-18, right? We're losing 19-18. We've lost to this team once in the season by one run, and they batted last. And our team thinks that whoever bats last wins the game. They think that's the rules of baseball. So we're in a huddle. We come off the field. It's 19-18, and I get them in a huddle. I'm like, come on, guys, we're going to hit, and we're going to win this game. And this kid, he's not very good, right? He just yells, we get to hit again? And I said, yeah, and he's so excited that he punches me in the face. So much that I take a step back, and and the other coach hugged me. He's like, you okay? You got him too excited. Come to me. We get 2 outs right off the bat, and the very last batter on our team is this kid, and he gets up and gets a hit and ends up scoring the tying run. Right? So you can't tell by looking at somebody how much they love something based on their talents, their gifts, their abilities. Those are God-given things, right? You're not judged by what you're given. However, you are judged by how you use those gifts, those talents, and those abilities, all right? None of us in here are gifted the same way across the board. There's so many different gifts, there's so many different talents, there's so many different abilities, and we in our head, we like to rank those as the best. We all know that the preachers are the best gifted people in the world. As a joke. Somebody asked me today, why do you laugh at your jokes? I'm like, because sometimes nobody else does. I try to give you all the hint. That's funny. Anyways, we like to rank gifts and talents, but in all honesty, we're not judged by what gift we have or how good we think the gift is or how important we think it is. But you are judged on what you do with what you've been given with your gift, with your attribute, with your abilities, right? So in Genesis chapter 2, we have man for the first time, and we have a description here of what man is supposed to be doing in this world. All right, so Genesis chapter 2, verse number 15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. All right? So we have man. He's been created. God creates everything. He creates the world. He creates all of creation. And he creates man, and he puts man in the Garden of Eden, and he tells him to work it and to keep it. All right? So he's been given a job to do. Now, when you read this, you read this specific verse, and we're talking about Adam, who's put in the Garden of Eden to keep it and to work it, and that is his job, to work the garden, to keep the garden, to make sure everything is working the way it should, to make everything's weed-eated and cut, and the trees are pruned, and the apples are picked, and all this different stuff, right? That is Adam's job. However, working and keeping the garden is Adam's sub-job, all right? That's the job that we're given in Genesis 2:15, but his job of keeping the garden, working the garden, cultivating the garden, taking care of the animals, taking care of the plants, doing all these things, that's his job, that's his purpose, but that's his sub-job. Adam's ultimate job in this story that goes without being said is to glorify God. He glorifies God in how he works the garden, in how he cultivates and manages and takes care of and does all these things. Adam is not going to be judged by the gifts and traits and stuff he's given. He's going to be judged by how he does his job with what he's been given to do. So we have Adam being placed in the Garden of Eden, and we are very clear on what his job is, what his role is, what his purpose is. It's to keep the garden and work it, right? It's to do that while glorifying God. But not only does Adam is Adam placed in the garden by God, God places him in the garden and tells him to work it and tells him to keep it, but then he gives him the abilities and the gifts and the understanding and the wisdom to do the job that he was supposed to be doing. He not only gives Adam a job, he equips Adam to go out and to do this job. But God's not a puppeteer, right? He didn't create all of you and give you a job, and then he works you and tells you what to do and what not to do, right? We are given free will. So Adam's given this job to do. He's given the gifts to do it. He's given the abilities, the understanding, the knowledge, the talent. He's given all this stuff. And then Adam has to make a decision. Adam has to make the decision, do I use my gifts, my abilities? Do I use my energy to express my love for God and how I keep my job, how I keep the garden and work it and cultivate it? Do I show God how much I love him by how I glorify him with my life? Or do I use my gifts, do I use my talents to serve myself because really I love myself more than I love God? And if you read on through the story, you know how that ends. They ultimately make the decision that they really love themselves a little bit more than they love God, because they do the one thing God told them not to do, right? They use their brain for something that God told them not to do at all, right? So this is thousands of years ago, right? Life was a lot more simple back then. There was no cell phones, there's no cars, there's none of this other stuff that we've got to do. We've added so much junk, right, to our lives, and so much things that we're supposed to be doing, and so many things we're supposed to be responsible for, and all these things. But even though the world has changed dramatically, even though the world has gotten a lot more complicated, the world's gotten a lot more dirty, right, because of us, our job is very much the same. So 1 Peter chapter 4, in Genesis chapter 2, we have man's first job, and as he's placed in the garden, it's to work it and keep it. In 1 Peter chapter 4, here's our job to do now that Jesus has came and he's lived in our place and died in our place and rose again so that we may have life, right, and be forgiven of our corruption and of our rebellion. We have in here 1 Peter chapter 4, we see our job now living post-resurrection. All right? 1 Peter chapter 4, verse number 10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks the oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. So just like Adam, you have been given a job. All right? You've been given a job in a way. In 1 Peter chapter 4, verse number 10, it is clearly said that you're to take everything you've been given, your gifts, your abilities, your talents, you're to take what God has given you and to go out and use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Your job as a believer is to serve people. It's to love people. I've gotten told so many times over the last 2 years that I speak way too much on loving people and I don't preach enough on sin. We are told clearly here we're to love people. Sin matters. Hear me clearly. It matters a lot. There's consequences for your sin. There's consequences for every action that you do, right? We shouldn't be sinning. We should be avoiding these things. But if all we do all day long is sit there and we look at the list of sins that we're supposed to be avoiding and we never do anything else, we never serve, we never love, we never do anything else but look at a list and try our best to avoid sin, avoid disobeying, avoid this and doing that, then we're not doing our job. We're not told here to sit still and don't sin until Jesus gets back. We're told you've been given gifts, go out and serve people. Now, It goes both ways, right? It's you can't go out and live like a hood rat and then expect to win people to Jesus. You got to act like you know what you're doing. You got to act like you want to live a life that pleases God. But I know so many people that are great church men and church women, and they've lived their life trying not to do this sin and not to do that sin, and they're the most hateful people I've ever met. I get a lot of reaction from that one, right? There's a word for somebody that studies and follows and obeys a list, but they never love, and that's called a Pharisee. The world was full of them, and they killed Jesus, right? Because he came to love. Again, I'm not telling you that we don't just go out and live however we want to. That's not it. But our main focus should not be avoiding and being scared of messing up and tripping or sinning. Our main focus in life should be loving people. If we're not loving and serving people, then we're not doing our job. In fact, Paul, he talks about this. He talks about how important it is that we love people and serve people. He said that if we're not loving people, it doesn't matter what we're doing, we're just cacophonous. Y'all know what that means? Y'all don't know what that means? Tell Todd I used the word cacophonous. I told him I was going to. Cacophonous means just all this noise and confusion, right? Paul says it this way. He doesn't really say cacophonous. But Paul says this: if you don't love people, it doesn't matter if you have a beautiful voice. It doesn't matter what gifts you've been given. It doesn't matter how beautiful you sing. Without love, you're just a noisy gong. You're not doing anything. You could stand up here and preach sermons. You could stand up and sing the most beautiful songs. You could come this morning and you could tithe your entire life savings in this box. And if you're not doing it out of love, it doesn't matter what you do. It's pointless. Your job in this world is to serve and to love people. But like Adam, that's just your sub job. That's just a smaller job that falls under the much bigger job that you're supposed to be doing, which is to glorify Christ. Everything you do should be pointing to Him. Everything that you do should be pointing to how great He is. And nothing glorifies Jesus more than to go out and tell your neighbors how much you love Jesus and how much Jesus loves you. That's the most glorifying thing you could ever do. The most important thing you can do with your life is to worship God, is to praise God, is to glorify God. And the best way to do that is found in 1 Peter chapter 4. It's to love people and to serve people. Every single one of you have been given gifts. You've been given abilities. You've been given talents. You've been given something that you possess inside of you that, look, nobody else in this room has the combination of stuff that you've got. But you're given it for a purpose. You're given it for a reason to go out and to express that in loving people and serving people and helping people understand how great Jesus truly is and how much He truly, truly loves you. You've been given a great singing voice. How are you using that? Are you leading a congregation? Are you singing in your pew? Are you going to karaoke bars and singing? Or are you just not singing at all? You've told yourself that I can't stand up on stage, or I can't even sing. There's some of you that had the most beautiful voice. You don't even sing Sunday morning during worship time. Not on stage, just in your seat. You're robbing God of His praise. You're robbing God of His glory. You're choosing not to love and honor God with the gift that you've been given. You're not using your energy in a way that would express love to others or express love to God. Some of you in here can talk to anybody at any given time. I ended up yesterday on a scooter round because I started talking to an older lady that needed help getting it back in. There's a video of that somewhere. We'll get that up as soon as we can. Right? Some of you can talk to people at any given moment. How are you using that talent? How are you using that gift? Are you talking about nonsense? You talking about how great your kid's baseball swing is at 8 years old? Are you talking about how bad your work week was? You telling about how great Jesus has been? Or are you just not talking to people? Right? I can talk to anybody. There's so many days I just don't feel like talking to anybody, and I'll hide in the aisle because I saw you at Walmart. I've seen some of you at Walmart, and I've hid from you. I'm admitting that. All right? It was Bubba. Not the dollar. You can't hide the dollar store. There's only 3 aisles. Anyways, it's also very small, and my voice carries, and people find me. I just tell them my name's Bukins. We've all been given gifts. Hospitality, right? Cooking. Whatever your gift is, whatever you're good at. You're not judged by what gift you possess, what thing it is you do well. But you are judged by how you use it. I look across this room, and there's so many things, and I get so excited. As a pastor, it's known that you get excited when people come to your church, right? I love seeing a church full of faces, and I'm so happy that we have people in here. But what excites me more as your pastor is not to see you come in the door, but to see you come in the door and then be excited to use the gifts that you've been given, right? I want you here. I want you to hear my sermons. I want you to hear the songs. I said they're not my sermons, right? I want you to hear the sermon. I want you to hear the songs. I want you to do all these things. But I want to see you use what God's given you to serve everyone else in this room and to serve the people outside this room. That's what I want to see. And so I get excited when I see things and see you do things. And I go around the whole room. But this morning, Scott stands up on stage, right? And he sings. And I know he thinks it was a disaster. Again, we're not judged on how well things are done or if we sung the song the right way. We're judged on the ability to get up and sing, and Scott did it, right? Scott didn't care that we messed up. I think Scott cared more than Kevin did. But Scott still used his voice to lead a congregation in one of the most beautiful songs that we've been given. That's my grandma's favorite song, too. I love that song, right? But Scotty P, I've known him for a long time. What year did y'all get married? Woo! Sorry, Scott. When? 2018. So I did their wedding in 2018, right? I've known Scott for a while. They started coming to the church here about a couple years ago, right? But Scott sat here for like a year and never told anybody that he has the voice of an angel. Never told anybody, right? And so the first Sunday he got up to sing, it was on a Wednesday night. We were practicing, and I was sitting in the sound booth for some reason. They let me in there, and he starts to sing, and I'm like, what? How did you held that out on us for that long, right? But he's a beautiful voice. So Scott, somewhere along the way, made the decision, you know what? I've been given this gift. I'm sitting on it. I'm going to stand up and begin to lead worship. And now I love every Sunday when I see Scott. I love all the worship team, but I love seeing Scott up here, and he's singing, and he's leading a congregation. And then this morning he sings Beulah, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. That's somebody that's taken a gift and has decided, now I'm going to start using my gift to glorify God, right? He's had it his whole life, but now we're serving God with it and making a difference in people's lives. I see my dad in here, and I jokingly, in my circle group, we call him the Flatwoods missionary. My dad has an influence on a lot of people, knows a lot of people, talks to anybody and everybody, right? He hung out with T-Pain this week. But over the last couple of years, it's been a difference in him. Right? I remember the very first time me and him were eating lunch. Not the first time we were eating lunch. I don't remember that day. But I remember the first time that this happened. We were eating lunch in Cave Spring, and a lady walks in. And again, I'll talk to anybody, and he will too. I think that's where I get it from. But we get talking, and then he tells her that she should come to our church sometime. And then he said something about how great the preacher was, and all that. But I remember thinking, man, all those years that my dad spent pouring into people for the wrong reasons. Now, what is the possibilities when he starts to use that for the kingdom? Right? It's crazy. Right? There's some of you in here right now because my dad's in here. He's invited you or talked to you, right? I look across the room, I see there's so many instances. There's so many things. A little bit different scenario, but the first time I met Shannon, they started visiting our church, and we used to have man church on Sunday nights. And the first time he came to man church, I was trying to get to know Shannon a little bit and talk to him. And he tells me, he's like, hey, I've been called to preach. And no offense, Shannon, I hear that a lot. And, there's a wide range, like I said, of people that can preach. And so when he told me that, it's the first time I met him, I thought, okay, that's cool, right? But then like a couple of Sundays ago, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, man, Shannon has been gifted amazingly. I know he was a nervous wreck. You could never tell. His ability to stand up and preach the word in a way and explain it in a way that people understood it and made sense, and the bucket and the rope analogy was just amazing. And so Shannon has decided that no matter how nervous I get, no matter how nerve-wracking it is, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to use the gift that I've been given to preach the word of God. And now Shannon leads our men's ministry on Wednesday nights. And I could go across the room and just about anybody in here, I can tell you exactly how you've been gifted and how excited I get when I see you using your gifts and using your abilities to just reach people. Trey is another one. I love when I go to eat with him or go with him, and he talks to everybody for a long time. Everybody gets I'm going to make, what is it? Long story short. It's never a short story, right? But now it's not just telling a long story short. It's, hey, you should come to church. You should come to our small group. You should do this, that. I go around the room, there's so many of you, and I get so excited about it because every one of you have been gifted in a way that is unique. And I'll be honest with you, I'm jealous of some of that, right? I want to be able to sing. If I could sing, y'all would have heard I Hope You Dance. Is that even it? By Leanne Womack. I hate that song, but it's perfect. I was going to sing it to Hollis. Hollis, you should dance. No. When I look at my 8U baseball team, there's 12 kids on the team. And I can tell you why each and every one of them are special. Right? That same game, it's tied game. It's 19-19, bottom of the inning, 2 outs. Got 2 runners on, and my kid comes up to bat. Right? And as a parent, that's the most nerve-wracking thing ever, that you've got to throw a strike to your kid to get the winning run in. I threw the ball. We had this thing. He's not to swing at the first one, or I beat him with a belt 15 times in the parking lot. All right? The first one goes by. The second one, he hits it to shortstop. The winning run scores. Nolan, was you the winning run? Where's Nolan at? I saw him running. Okay. Nolan scores the winning run, and Knox runs to third base. But as Hollis gets the hit and Nolan scores, right, I watched Knox run from third base to first base to jump on Hollis and celebrate with Hollis because his teammate knocked in the winning run. Knox is a phenomenal baseball player. But that tells me more about Knox than anything else I've ever seen. He's hit some balls. He hit one of the hardest balls I've seen in that league all year, that same game. And the thing I took away was how great of a teammate Knox is. You got this kid that punched me in the face. I love how excited he is just that we got to hit again, right? He's probably my favorite kid in the whole league, right? He's so excited. He dressed up as a baseball player for vocabulary day. That's how much he loves it, right? I could go through the whole team and tell you how special each and every kid is. And as corny as it is, I can do the same thing in here. I love each and every one of you. And when I see you, when I talk to you, when I spend time with you, I see how you've been gifted. And the things that God has given you and the abilities that God has given you. And I want you to use those in a way that glorify Him and praise Him while loving and serving other people. And it doesn't matter if you come in here and you vacuum the floor. It doesn't matter if you stand up and you preach a great sermon with a rope and a bucket. It doesn't matter if you sing Beulah Land and Kevin makes you sing the first verse 3 times like he's at a Garth Brooks concert. It doesn't matter what gift you possess. You have been given a gift and an ability, and you have the decision to make. Am I going to use this in a way that loves God and glorifies God and praises God, or am I going to use my gifts, my talents, my abilities to serve other things? I'm going to keep them hidden. I'm going to keep them to myself. I'm going to rob others. I'm going to rob God. I'm just going to be selfish with my gifts and abilities. Or am I going to choose to love people? I'm going to use them to serve people, to help people, and ultimately do all that in a way that I can love and thank God for how good He's been to me. So what kind of stewards are you being with your gifts, with your talents, with your abilities? What effort are you putting in to not using them, but using them for God? Using them to serve others, to love others, because that's what we're going to be judged for. Let's stand for prayer. The altars are always open if you need to come and pray. If you're out there this morning and you've never given your life to Jesus, I'd love to talk with you and answer any questions you may have. If you're out there and you're just thinking, you know what, I've given my life to Jesus, I may not be the best steward with my time, my energy, my gifts, my money or whatever, and I need to really refocus on that. I'm going to ask you to come and pray as well. If you'd like to join our church for the first time, I'd love to talk with you in the back after the service and talk about that.